Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How are you doing tonight?
Good. I'm a little hungry. I was too nervous to eat before the game. I was too. So now I'm starving. But we won't rush through this. We will give this game full appraisal.
Food for thought.
Yeah. Bruce, this is our two good things, two bad things, and two numbers podcast with one conundrum. Because it was a biggest win of the year, obviously we'll go with two good things each. What's your first good thing in the Oilers' 5-1 victory over the Vancouver Canucks in Game 6?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go with the first sort of real good thing that kind of set the tone a little bit for this game, and that was the brilliant goal by Dylan Holloway that opened the scoring. And both teams had come up pretty darn cautious in the first while, and then Leon Draisaitl used a really nice pass where he didn't go up the boards like the Oilers have been doing so much, but he kind of used the inside lane a little bit to hit Holloway on the fly in the neutral zone. And Holloway came in 1-on-2 against Vancouver's, essentially 1-on-2 against Vancouver's top defense pair of Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek. And he just sequentially owned Hughes, then Hronek, and then Artur Silovs in the goal to essentially carry the puck all the way into the net, cut inside Hughes with a terrific move. Hughes thought he was going to go around the outside. Oops, he's gone. And then he was able to cut back against Hronek and get by him with speed, and then right in on Silovs, so a little move and just forced a almost deep shot through the 5-hole and into the net. Just a real power rush that gave me happy memories of earlier days. Let's put it that way.
What do you mean?
Well, I've been watching all those Mark Messier highlights from 1984 this week because, of course, this is the 40th anniversary of the first Cup tomorrow. And Messier scored 3 fantastic end-to-end goals in games 3 and 4. And this goal kind of reminded me of one of those in terms of just one guy just bowling the puck right through everybody and into the net.
It's a huge story in these playoffs, Bruce, is his development. I mean, he could be on the first line by the end. I mean, he's essentially on 1A, 1B, line 1B here. He has just watching him in college hockey, he looked like such a fantastic player. And I was excited. I thought that first, I can't remember which, it was either 2020 or 2021, that I thought, that when they signed him, they might bring him in right then in the playoffs.
And he broke his freaking scapula in the last college game.
Yeah, and he's had all kinds of injuries, and there's been some, mainly injuries has blocked his way. There's really not veterans blocking his way. You know, he let's face it, he also took some time to develop, is the truth.
Yeah.
He was fairly error prone, and he wasn't getting it done on the attack. He wasn't confident enough with the puck. He wasn't making good enough decisions in his own end. He was weak defensively. You know, we measure players by their contributions to grade A shots and their mistakes on grade A shots against an even strength. And he was one of the worst Oilers wingers this year. You know, regulars, guys who played more than 400 minutes. So him coming on, like, you could always see the flashes, and you would put it together for a game or a shift, or then finally at the end of the year when he got called up, he got it. He was finally putting it together game after game after game. And I remember people like Ryan Rishaug and I think Kurt Levins were lobbying for him to get in more time and on the ice, and they were right on this player. They were right, dead right. And he has just come on, and when he got put up on the Draisaitl line, I thought, how's this going to work? Because so many people crumble when they're playing with Leon Draisaitl, who's such an uber confident individual. You got to make plays when you're with Leon Draisaitl. But from the first shift, he's been stick handling around and making nice plays with Draisaitl in the playoffs here. So Fantastic.
When you see Leon hitting a guy with a sort of 60 or 75-foot lead pass because he's busted the zone and it's gotten in good position, and Leon's hitting him on the tape way up the boards, he's not shying off. He's starting to feel his oats a little bit.
He did look off on one play later in the game, and I thought he should have hit him. I think it's going to take a while to develop the chemistry that these two might develop as they go along, because they're a perfect complement, because Draisaitl works well with speed, with fast players. And this is a fast player, super fast player. So he only played Holloway 12-16 this game. All of it at even strength. It'd be nice but there was lots of special teams playing this game, so no one's through the roof, but it'd be nice to get those minutes up a little bit.
And there was lots of, protecting the lead in the third period.
Yes. Yeah.
Which they did very well. I thought they spent, other than there was about a 3-minute segment in the middle of the period where Vancouver had the puck in Edmonton's end. Mostly Edmonton had it in Vancouver's end.
Yeah, there was real good
cycling it along the boards and just making smart, safe plays with it. But Holloway, he got sent down, got caught in the numbers game after the trade deadline, and he got sent down. And Ken Holland was getting ripped for mismanaging the player and poor development. And he went down. You know what? It was exactly what he needed at that point in time.
Get on the ice.
He went down there. He ripped it up. He was playing 20 minutes a night. He was playing a first line, power play, penalty kill even. And he scored pretty much a point a game and got a hat trick in his last game. And they called him up and he just kept going. And he's been like a totally different player since his last return to Edmonton after sort of, 3 years that we've been waiting for breakthrough. Well, we're seeing it now in real time. And for all that, some were saying, well, look at how perfectly they handled Logan Stankoven, and here's Dylan Holloway in the minors. Well, the Oilers essentially did the same thing with Holloway. They called him up near the end of the year and he started scoring. So I would say let's let the fullness of time tell us how good or bad Dylan Holloway's development has been.
I've never had major doubts because, again, I saw him so well in college hockey. Like, he just was such a dominant player. So that's a high level of play. And he was fantastic. And he's so fast and he's big and he's got skill. So, and he seemed to be able to play center as well. So, Bruce, my first good thing will be, I'll go with Stuart Skinner. And what did he only have 15 shots? But I think 9 of the grade A shots in this game were fairly close, although some of it was score effects. Canucks had 4 out of the last 5, but overall the grade A shots were 11-9 for the Oilers. This was a very low event game for both teams, despite the high score for the Oilers. Yeah. Seelov's kind of crumpled a bit. Anyway, the 5 alarm shots were 4-2 for the Canucks. They actually had more of the very best chances. So Skinner didn't have much going on in the game in terms of action until right at the end of the second period. And the Oilers are up 3-1, and the Canucks have a power play. And I can't remember if Quinn Hughes' shot came on the 5-on-3 or the 5-on-4, but Quinn Hughes lets rip with a spectacularly hard shot labeled for the top corner of the net. Absolutely labeled. And there's all kinds of players in front of Skinner. This is just the goal that Stuart Skinner has been letting in all playoffs long, truth be told, Bruce. And this would be just the moment that he would let the other team back in the game. But out of nowhere, his blocker comes and blockers the shot. Someone said it went off the post. I don't know if it did. But
it hit the post as well after. He just got a little piece of it.
Just tipped it.
Absolutely great angle. There was a few shots tonight that had absolutely sensational camera angles where you could see the screen in front of the goalie and you couldn't even see the goalie. You could just see the lane and the guys in front of him. This was one of those shots. And Skinner's blocker, the end zone camera, showed Hughes absolutely picking the top corner with a great shot. And Skinner's blocker just showing up out of nowhere to just get this tiniest piece of it and put it off the post.
Good line from Oilers fan Stan Gilbert on Twitter on that. He said, "Was Skinner using the force on that save?" Sid had that feeling. Bruce, there was a lot of controversy, and I think I was very strongly. I think when you brought up the idea of starting Skinner, I ruled it as crazy talk at the time, and I felt that way in the moment. Like Pickard had been so great in the game. But anyway, Bob Stauffer got on the radio yesterday and then kind of hinted strongly Skinner starting, and that was the first I'd heard of it. And for a long time, I was uncomfortable with it. But by the time the game had come around and the game was starting, I was actually thinking
the logic of it.
I was starting to get it. Yeah, and I listened to Knoblauch right before the game. Here's what he had to say. Let me just find his quote from Chris Knoblauch. He said, quote, "A tough decision with the way Picks had played, obviously, but looking on our season on the line and seeing what Stu has done for us this season, since I've been here, he's looked like an elite goaltender with Vezina-like numbers, and right now we need a big game from him, and we're going with him." So there was a logic to that, and the whole how many good games in a row can you expect from Pickard, which was a fairly good point because he hadn't put together a run of solid games. He hadn't been asked to really, but so anyway, he came up and he made every save he needed to make except for one, Bruce, and that one was a really tough play, which we're going to get to.
Not the second.
Yeah, he made the first stop and not the second. But so after the game, they interviewed Connor McDavid, and here's what he had to say about Skinner. He says, quote, "We were solid in front of Stu, not many shots, but the ones they did get, I thought were dangerous," which is exactly right. 9 of their 15 shots were grade A's, according to our calculations. McDavid continued, "He did a great job stepping up. We never had a doubt. Honestly, he's a battler, and he's always been a battler." So that was a really nice comment from McDavid, but it was followed up on the broadcast by Sportsnet's Kevin Bieksa, who is a former Vancouver Canuck. And here's what he had to say about Stuart Skinner. This is after the game. What did Skinner have, like 7 shots on net after 2 periods? And Kelly Hirudi said, "It's not like he was beaming with confidence. The Canucks just let him off the hook by playing a very simple, passive game. They had very few shifts where they were in the Edmonton zone and peppering Skinner, and he was ripe for the picking."
Yeah.
I like that. Bieksa, he cracks me up. Like I love him because very few hockey commentators say
puts
interesting
it out there.
things. He always says interesting things.
Yeah, and points for that for sure. Here's the odd thing. I knew 5-1 wasn't representative of the score, but one of the stats that I look at always is expected goals. And, it's not a gospel or anything. It's just a pointer. Yeah. But this is a natural stat trick. And they actually had Vancouver at 2.8 and Edmonton at 2.7 in this game. So meaning Edmonton,
that's 2.7. I'm going to include that on my post right now. So if you guys hear me typing, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it was close, but Vancouver had 51% of the expected goals. And at just on 5-on-5, it was also 51% Vancouver. And this was a game where 5-on-5 was all the scoring and the penalty kills. Both penalty kills were superior to both power plays, including a lengthy 5-on-3 for each team that didn't generate much. That Hughes shot was 5-on-3, and that was really the only dangerous one.
Where was that stat from again, Bruce? Sorry.
Natural stat trick.
Okay. What is your second good thing?
Yeah, there's a cornucopia of good things, David. So I'm gonna go for 3 for 1 and pick the Oilers' first line in this game of Connor McDavid between Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Zach Hyman. Among them, they scored 2 goals and 7 points, with Hyman pounding home the game winner midway through the second on a second great chance in rapid succession set up by both of his line mates. And this one, the centering pass from McDavid kind of came into his skates, and he so he wasn't able to one-time it like he wanted. But in the way it worked out, the delay, I think, messed up Seeloff's more than it did Hyman. And he was able to get away a shot, and Seeloff's had kind of overcommitted by then. He got a piece of it, but not enough, and it popped up and over. Well, that was apple number one for McDavid, Nugent Hopkins. And then the two of them, just 4 minutes later, were involved in setting up Evan Bouchard for an outside shot, which frankly you would expect to be stopped in this league. But Evan Bouchard has a shot that, just like you might expect a batter to hit a Nolan Ryan fastball, as the goalie to stop, and Evan Bouchard bomb from the point, and this was a perfectly placed off the post and in. But again, the result of a good offensive zone cycle and puck control that set up. The Oilers were set up in Vancouver territory for a while, and they finally got a shot that broke through and hit the post and in to make it 3-1. And then in the early moments of the third period, this was the one that really made things comfortable for Edmonton. And this time it was Bouchard with the lead pass and McDavid bursting in on the right wing and making a centering pass kind of into traffic. And I thought Nugent Hopkins was like second or third closest to where the puck was going to go, but he actually got there first, was able to get a stick on it and beat the Vancouver defenders and ultimately the goaltender as well. Just his third goal of the playoffs. Although he's now up to 14 points and 3 even strength points tonight for the Nuge, who gets an extra shout out from me for playing 3 minutes and 34 seconds on the PK on a night that the PK had a strong game, and he was doing most of the 3-on-5 work. And so he excelled in many aspects of the game tonight. So if I had to pick one of the three, I would pick Nuge, but I'm just going to take the easy way out and pick all of them as the line. I'll call the line my good thing.
I like it. I like that creativity. That line deserves praise, Bruce.
They were good.
So I was on Oilers Now on Friday, and Stauffer asked me who he think's not playing very well, and I named Nuge, which I think on special teams he's been outstanding all playoffs. He's been great on the power play. He's been really great on the PK. He's been, one of their absolute stalwarts on a fantastic PK. But he hasn't been, and we've seen this game, and I think we saw it tonight actually from Nugent Hopkins. He was harder. He was, he had that harder stick. There was early in his career, there was hopes that Nugent Hopkins would be like a Pavel Datsyuk kind of player with that strong stick. And sometimes he has it, but not enough. And this game, I thought he was actually digging in there really hard and battling harder for the puck and going hard to the net as he did on the goal. That was a fantastic goal by Nugent Hopkins. McDavid was interesting. He got the 3 assists, but Bruce, he just doesn't look like he's got fifth gear. He's got the first 4, but he does not have fifth gear on his spins and his turns. They're just not as fast, lightning fast, and going up the ice. And the other thing about McDavid on the power play, like the Oilers' power play was wonky, and it seemed like he had open nets to shoot at a couple times, and he didn't shoot.
Yeah,
couldn't figure that out. But player gets 3 assists. He did everything right, pretty much everything right defensively. He had a good game at least, probably maybe a great game, especially considering I have no doubt he's playing hurt, and he had for that. Man, he's sucking it up and coming through. That was a huge game from the top line, just when the Oilers really needed it. So, Bruce, my second good thing is the coaching decisions. And obviously, I think he got the goaltending thing right. The Oilers were determined. I think if Pickard had been that, maybe there wouldn't have been a lot different. But the Oilers were determined with Skinner and that they were going to play a hardcore defensive game, and they really did, except for one exception we're going to talk to. They really did play a very, very strong defensive game. Just a really smart game, and I noticed they were taking great care to cover the slot. All game long, I was noticing that, where players who in the past might have charged off to the corner or charged off to the side were properly assessing the situation and covering the danger man, which everybody knows who listens to this podcast is my pet peeve about the Oilers. They leave the danger man open, and that's how they lose hockey games. This game, they were hyper aware of it and consistently getting on that player. So it was a great defensive effort, but the coach, nonetheless, they got Skinner made the big save, as I said, on Quinn Hughes. He made some other big saves. He got that right, and that was a difficult call for Knoblauch. There was one other thing, though, that I loved even more, and that was reuniting the Foegele, Ryan, and McLeod line, which had been so good in the playoffs, Bruce. And I couldn't figure out earlier this year, I'm sure I mentioned it a few times, but why they hadn't gone back to that line. Jay Woodcroft created a great line that shut down, outplayed their Vegas opponents consistently in a tough series. And then he didn't go to them early in the season. And I could never figure that out. Then I kind of forgot about it. But I have been harping on the need for a checking line. Someone you can send out there against the top competition of the other team to munch minutes. And they haven't had that. And tonight they put together two of them, Bruce. Two lines that aren't the top line. They put together the Carrick, Brown, and Janmark line, which was a good checking line. And although I don't know how well Carrick played, but I'd have to look at that a little bit more closely. But the Ryan, McLeod, Foegele line, they were on for the goal against, and we'll talk about that. And McLeod was at fault on that, but they were able to munch minutes against Vancouver's got the Swede line and the Miller line. They were able to put these guys out there and the Carrick line out there against those lines. Huge for the Oilers. Absolutely huge. So never too late for the coach to get it right. And I think it was the biggest, that more than the goalie change, was the biggest adjustment. They also, in all due respect to Corey Perry, who's a Hall of Fame player, he was not keeping up this series. He was starting to become a fairly major liability in my mind because he couldn't get it done either on the forecheck or on the back check. And it just threw the Oilers off kilter. You can't have that. It's not like he's not trying. He's trying. He just couldn't keep up. So now they had 12 forwards. All of them could play the system that the Oilers were trying to play. And all of them did play it. They were all they were all conscientious on defense, and they were all forechecking hard. And when the Oilers do that and they get some kind of goaltending, big save here and there, they're going to win. They're a good team. Other teams are going to struggle to beat them. Even Vancouver the next game, even if the Oilers get by Vancouver the next game, Dallas will struggle to beat the Oilers a game when they bring it. And they brought it tonight because the coach figured out a way to get the lineup right and to make the right adjustments to help get a victory for his team. Your bad thing, Bruce. Yeah. Or do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I was, the sentimental part of me wanted to see the other Sam get the push into the lineup for his first ever Oilers playoff game.
Me too.
Carrick was solid on the face-off dot, and he did make one key play to draw a penalty where he just, busted through the Vancouver defense and forced them to do something about it. And whatever, because he was hustling, he drew a penalty and kept his feet moving,
Yeah.
I don't suppose he's a huge difference maker, but when you have a nice lead in the third period, the more safe players you can put out there on the ice, the better. So.
Yeah, Henrique's not ready, so they needed a center, someone to take face-offs, and it's Carrick, right? And he can kill penalties if needs be. I don't know. Did he get out there on the PK? I'm not sure that he did, but
he did
Carrick.
not.
No, he did not. You're right. He did not. They didn't even use him there because Fogel's doing such a great job. And I thought Foegele had his best game. Like he was, he made a few plays on the attack, and he and McLeod combined a few times on nice plays on the attack. Foegele almost scored on one burst in there. So good for the coach, because you can't win with two lines. You need four lines. And he actually went from two lines to four lines tonight. Well, fair enough. I don't know if they had one line last game.
They had one line in the
checking line.
A couple of games earlier in the series.
and one line against in the last loss, which was the fourth line, right? That was the only line that excelled.
Yeah, that was going. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Bad things. What is your bad thing, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm just going to go with, I think, bad penalties. And to my mind, there was 3 of them. The only 2 penalties of the first period were taken by Oilers' 2 leaders. Leon Draisaitl for pretty senseless interference call in the neutral zone after he'd had a good rush down the other end, and he just was buzzing around and he went through a guy, and the ref decided it was interference, and it was. I mean,
it was.
It didn't affect the play really, but so what? You don't give him a chance to call that. And then later in the period, McDavid got his stick up. And unlike the one on Quinn Hughes where he nicked him in the cheek and Vancouver fans were all saying he slashed him in the face and stuff, and I thought that was an accident. I thought it was one of those ones where he tried to avoid the guy by getting the stick out of the way and it just didn't quite get it up in time to miss him. I don't think it was anything deliberate. But the one tonight, I don't know what the hell he was doing. He had a stick out and he kind of had it turned around. And he got it in the guy's visor, and he was kind of lucky not to get 4 minutes, to be honest. And it just was a strange one. And then the other real killer was, well, it could have been a killer type penalty, killing a penalty late in the second period, and they take a friggin' 2 many men on the ice penalty. On a bad, you clear the puck down, and then the 2 guys come out to replace one guy. Now they're 2 men short with a minute to go in the period, and basically 2 men short for that entire minute. And
did they actually join the play? I never did get a good view of what happened. It seemed kind of cheap, possibly.
2 came out and they circled around, and one guy came back, and I don't think either of them touched the puck, but
yeah,
the Vancouver bench was yelling, and when Vancouver yells, arms go up.
Now that is not fair, Bruce. Come on, I thought it was a well officiated game.
Yeah, well.
I thought the last 2 games have been well officiated.
Yeah, not too bad. I could say officiating was ranked tonight, but that would just be a snide comment at the name of one of the referees, Garrett Rank, which is a wonderful name for a referee. But he was actually not bad, and they did an okay job keeping the lid on things. And anyway, it was that 2 many men penalty. That really stung because you had every reason to think Vancouver will make it 3-2 in this 20th minute, and the third period is just going to be pucker up time, right? And it was, but the PKers, the 3-on-5ers, did the job. So good on them.
McDavid looked really nervous, I thought, in the first period because he he charged the net uncharacteristically hard on the disallowed goal. He was
forgot about that.
They were missing shots. He took a bad penalty. He looked nervous. Did they have a power play? He looked nervous on the power play. They weren't. The Oilers as a team were discombobulated, missing shots and missing passes, and they just looked really nervous. The whole team in the first period, which is not surprising, right? It's such a huge game. We'll see what happens in Game 7.
You will.
Okay, my bad thing, Bruce, is the first goal. Because after that great goal by Holloway, you're just hoping that the Oilers can build on that, because it was just a fantastic individual play. And what do? They allow the kind of goal that sunk them all year long. It's it lets the other team back in the game, and it starts with many people's favorite whipping boy, Ryan McLeod, who has been hardly leaked a goal against or a grade A shot against all playoffs. But what he does here? He seems to get off balance along the side wall. He's covering a Vancouver player, and he turns the wrong way, and that sets off the sequence of pain. The Vancouver player takes it behind the net and then passes it out front, and Desharnais and Nurse somehow failed to cover the danger man, Niels Höglander, who's right close in the slot, coming into the slot, and Nurse and Desharnais both miss him. Desharnais is, I think, distracted they're both distracted by the puck carrier to some extent, out with the puck. But again, he's not scoring from behind the net. The danger man scoring. Niels Höglander is the danger man.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy you're looking for, Darnell Nurse and Vincent Desharnais. And I think Desharnais was trying to cover another guy who was actually beside him. But I really saw it as Nurse as the primary culprit here, not recognizing where the danger was coming from. Pass out front, Höglander one shot, Skinner stops it. A second point blank shot, he cannot stop, and it's 1-1. And it's a game. Suddenly it's a game. So hockey happens fast. Play like that happens fast, but you have to recognize suddenly when it's an odd man situation, which suddenly that became after McLeod took himself out of the play with a mistake. McLeod and Nurse, the two primary guys. But Nurse has got to read that better and cover off the danger man.
Minute 45 after the Holloway goal.
Yes.
And I wasn't too happy with that because it so reminded me of the Vegas series last year, which this has been almost a photocopy of that series.
Didn't it remind? Yeah.
The Oilers lost games 1, 3, 5, and they lost this game, equivalent game that last year. And in all the games that they lost, they had the lead, the early lead. And just like this series, the first 3 games they lost, the Oilers had the lead in those games. And they had the lead tonight, and it just melted away within moments.
Yeah.
I was kind of saying, they got to put a stop to this stuff, or they're just not going to be able to contend. You can't be given a goal back every time you get one. And it wasn't quite a gift, but it was a little easier than it probably needed to be. Pedersen just fooled McLeod entirely. McLeod thought he was going to go into the middle, and he went around him and around behind the net. And Ryan McLeod got a little cross-footed there, and
it happens.
Pedersen's a slippery player, and he put on a good move, and it worked.
Yeah, and you needed someone then to make a good read, and it's kind of
and erase the guy in front. Yeah,
didn't happen. Bruce, what is your number?
Yeah, I've got a kind of surprising number today, which is 15 minutes and 24 seconds, sixth most of Edmonton's 6 defensemen by over 2 minutes, in fact, by over 2.5 minutes less than anybody else, and that was Matthias Ekholm. And hands up if you saw that coming, but Ekholm's been battling something for a few days now, probably an illness, and he was able to fight through it and have a couple of good games in games 3 and 4, but he was poor in game 5. And tonight he was fine. In fact, he had a pretty good game if you look at what he did, +3 in the game, and he was on the ice for 5 minutes and 2 seconds of his 15 minutes were on the penalty kill, which was perfect on the night and a big part of the win. And I didn't notice him a lot. I didn't notice him in a bad way, really, at all.
No.
Not a whole lot. Like, it was just a quiet game from him. And I think he was sort of giving them what he had, but it wasn't probably all that much. And I'll notice in the third period, he played just 4 shifts and just 2 minutes and 38 seconds, which included, he started the period and killed the residual penalty to start the period. And then he just got 3 more shifts the whole rest of the way. Of course, they made it 4-1 soon thereafter. And clearly the coaches were saying, let's monitor and keep this guy under wraps as much as we can. And he just got his last shift. And this maybe is a concern that maybe something happened. He never played after the 8:33 gone mark of the third, like 11:27.
What was the score?
That was 4-1. And he never saw the ice from 11:27 to 0.
We'll have to go look and see if there's anything.
Yeah. I'm looking at that now and seeing how early his last shift ended. You wonder if something actually happened.
Because it was kind of garbage time. And if a player's laboring, maybe they just thought.
But he played 11 shifts in the first, 6 in the second, 4 in the third. So
when did his last shift end?
11:27 to play.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Might be worth a look to see if anything
happened that
obvious.
shift.
It was a 38-second kind of a normal length shift. But anyway, that was the last time he was out there. So.
All right. All right. Hopefully he's okay, because he's obviously critical.
He's a pretty crucial player.
So I talked earlier, Bruce, my number revolves around Knoblauch's coaching decision. I talked earlier about how if you get some checking lines that you can put out there against the best competition, it's such a huge advantage for your team. And I don't know, I think it's been a fundamental problem with the Edmonton Oilers in the McDavid era. They've never had really a go-to checking line that they're willing to play against the top line of the other team. In Game 6 last year against Vegas, they had Draisaitl's line against Ekholm, which was a disaster.
Yep. And
they should have been playing the McLeod line against Ekholm, frankly. Like, I just don't know why they didn't have McDavid and McLeod go up against that line. But anyway, Knoblauch got this right tonight, because there was two dangerous lines. There's the Swede line with Elias Peterson, and there's the JT Miller line, two very dangerous lines for Vancouver at this point. And so they got lots of time. I don't know, it looks about 40% of the time they had McLeod or Carrick out there. So against Peterson, Elias Peterson, McLeod was out 3.5 minutes, Carrick 2.5 minutes, McDavid almost 5 minutes, and Draisaitl 3 minutes. So yeah, and against Miller, it was McLeod 3.5 minutes again, Carrick almost 2 minutes, McDavid almost 4 minutes, and Draisaitl almost 3 minutes. So this, if we're looking for a reason why Connor McDavid became unleashed, I don't know who was on the ice when he was out there, but there were some major mistakes going on a lot of those goals. Those were some ugly goals. Vancouver fans must be mad at their players. I mean, I didn't break down who made the mistakes in Vancouver, but there were some ugly mistakes. And that'll happen, I think, if you get McDavid out there against the third and fourth lines of the opposition. And so I know you want him to be able to handle strength versus strength, but the Oilers, they've neglected this huge opportunity by finding a checking line and going to that checking line against the top and the second top line on the other team. Why not do it? And now they have this group of players that were tested and succeeded last year in the playoffs. Well, I'm glad they're finally using them. Outstanding.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in Game 7, of course, with Rick Tocchet having the last change. If he tries to force feed Miller one-on-one on McDavid, there's not necessarily a whole lot that Knoblauch can do about it.
He will do that.
Of course, there is a lot that Connor McDavid can do about it, which is to win that matchup.
That's right.
Throw down the gauntlet.
Yeah, home ice advantage is significant at this point, because the Oilers finally, I think, figured out how to use home ice advantage really successfully against Vancouver. And this is a good auguring going forward. If the Oilers get past Vancouver, it gives them a much greater chance if they whatever that Wyatt Johnson, Jamie Benn line is, if they can put out McLeod's line against that line a good measure of the time, that'd be huge. So, but anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, let's not talk about Dallas just yet. I'm sort of relishing the conversation I saw coming out of Vancouver after Game 5, when a couple of their fans were starting to look ahead to Dallas or Colorado in the next round, and the whole rest of their fan base were going, "Oh, we got to get this series done first before you even think about that." And they were having conniptions, and these foolhardy young fans were talking as if, we've solved Edmonton, so who's next?
No, this next game obviously it's to me, Bruce, it's a coin flip. Because it's on Vancouver home ice and they get last change. That's a significant advantage for the Canucks, and it draws them even with the Oilers. There was some good things.
It's anybody's game, yeah.
Seelovs was not strong in this game, and hopefully, but he's also been outstanding in other games, so he could easily bounce back and have a huge game. Maybe they'll fool everybody and go with Casey DeSmith. They're kind of facing the same thing with Seelovs as the Oilers did with Pickard, in that he's not a guy who's played all these games in a row in the NHL. Seelovs. So, that could be wearing on him, fingers crossed. So, It's going to come down to some crazy bounce, and this is what I hate about Game Sevens. The Oilers in our collective memory have some horrible Game 7 moments that we can think about that have happened, which I won't get into. But it can just come down to one really bad luck play, and you can lose the game in Game 7. And we'll see what happens. Like, I don't know if the Oilers can establish dominance in Vancouver, especially if their power play is not going. So that's the conundrum, Bruce, is can the Oilers bring their A game, the A game that we've seen in Games 4 and now in Game 6 in Edmonton, can they bring that A game and play it in Vancouver, where they're the dominant team at even strength and on special teams?
Well, it seemed like they were in control tonight. Expected goals be damned. And as you say, score effects would be some of it, but actually the expected goals count was biggest in the first period, that they thought Vancouver really had the advantage. But I think we had grade A's at 4-1 Vancouver in the first.
Yeah, we did. That is accurate. And the 2 5 alarm shots. Well, they were the ones, the first shot by Hoglander and then the one that went in the net. Yeah. Those were screamers when it comes to scoring chances. So, yeah.
So,
especially the rebound. You allow a rebound on that. It's like, it's not Skinner's fault, because just making the first save was good. But you don't take the guy out for the rebound, and you're like, you're going to get scored on. So what do you think? Can they do it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes or no? Yeah.
Absolutely, they can do it. Will they do it? I like their odds, but I'm not saying they're like 80-20 or anything, But I think Edmonton has the power and the experience to come through when the chips are down in Game 7.
I'm a lot more confident about going to the game with Stu Skinner than I was going into this game with him. I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. And Connor McDavid said, we never doubted him, or it wasn't.
Right.
I did.
What's he going to say? Yeah, you and a lot of people. I had a couple people go off on me today just because I wrote about it. Said, Coach chose Skinner, and I thought all along personally, I thought Pickett's going to get the third loss. When he came in for Game 4, I thought if he loses this game, they're right back to Skinner. If he wins this game, he'll get the next game. But if he loses that, it'll be right back to Skinner. And in the end, that's how it turned out. And it was complicated in that Pickard was probably the best Oiler in Game 5, and the main reason it was close.
Yeah.
And he played well, Pickard did, in Game 5. But he was still beaten for 3, and he had one hit the post and one hit the crossbar and one fished off the goal line. And it was so it was, and one goal that we deemed to be a B shot that he should have stopped, and so not like a super clean game.
But there were 20 grade A shots.
Yeah, there was. I mean, the main thing was Edmonton team had to cut way down on the scoring opportunities, and they did. And maybe Skinner scared him straight. We don't want to give up any good shots because we don't know if they're going to get stopped. Who knows? Anyway, whatever it was, maybe it was just backs to the wall that scared him straight, because there wasn't very much in the way of uncontested Vancouver chances tonight.
Yeah. Alrighty, Bruce. Well, you got to write the game grades.
I do.
And we both got to eat. So maybe it's a good time to sign off.
All right.
So thanks for talking tonight.
Back on Monday night. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult Hockey Podcast.